the news came out yesterday. Bryce Young has been benched in Carolina. Andy Dalton will be the starter. The head coach of the Panthers, Dave Canales, spoke about why the change in the decision based on the fact that he gave him a vote of confidence following the game over the weekend, all of a sudden to announce the news. And he talked about that and also tried to clear up any misnomers potentially about who was making the call.
After yesterday, just went home, watched the film, had some conversations with coaches, so had to gather a lot of information through this morning and made that decision after looking at it that this is the best decision for our group, for our team.
Tepper saying in the past that he gets consulted on the big decisions. Mm-hmm. What was his role in this as you guys talked about?
I want to keep that private. What I would like to say, though, is this is something after I watched the film, I looked at it, had a thought, started working on talking to the guys that we make decisions with. Certainly a lot of parties involved there, and ultimately this comes on me, and my number one responsibility is to help the Panthers win, and so this move, I believe, puts us in the best chance to do that this week.
Translation, Tepper said, you figure it out. Is there a quarterback out there that's available? Who can we try to use to try to get a jump start? It's that or your ass, and I will not hesitate to replace your ass. Yeah. So this is self-preservation, but go ahead. You got it.
Well, it could be to a degree. I also think there's an element of maybe even David Tepper taking accountability or coming to the realization that Bryce Young isn't going to be able to do it at this level. And if you go back to last year, one of the reasons why I think there is, a firing and they kind of went their separate ways had a lot to do with the fact of, well, who decided on Bryce Young as the number one overall pick? Was it David Tepper? Was it the former coach, their staff? Because it seemed as if there was a bit of a divide. And, we saw a video of Josh McCown, who was with C.J. Stroud, and it seemed like they were very high on C.J. Stroud from a lot of the video and the reports after his pro day, but they didn't go that direction. And last year, oddly enough, Bryce Young got hurt, didn't play week 3. Andy Dalton did. I believe it was versus Seattle, if my recollection is correct. And Dalton played actually pretty well. Threw for a bunch of yards, didn't win the game, but he kind of kept them at least afloat, and it looked a lot better than when Bryce Young was in there. So in this case, this second year, again, week 3, third game of the season, same thing happens. Maybe not through from an injury, but obviously Andy Dalton gets a shot. I remember calling a game and seeing Andy Dalton and watching it going, it needs a veteran in there. There's just something about the way Dalton would get the ball out quick, anticipate, see it, climb the pocket, where Bryce Young just is not doing that. And maybe that could help spark him seeing how it's supposed to be done by a veteran guy, and he'll do it. He's still early on in his career. But what I've witnessed so far in the first couple of weeks is a quarterback who has not learned to do that as far as navigating the pocket at the NFL level. He is not giving any of the deep routes much time to develop. Now, it could be a bit because he's been shell-shocked from the hits he's taken from last year's offensive line and even, week 1, some of the pressures he sustained versus week 2, which the offensive line was better. But it doesn't seem like he's got any confidence whatsoever in his ability to hang in there, take hits, or hang in there, see down the field, and play the game like he needs to at the NFL level. And I talked about it being an issue for Bryce Young and some of the things he does fundamentally, with his body and turning it parallel to the line of scrimmage too much. And you're starting to see some of that stuff with Caleb Williams. And these guys better realize they have to adjust. They have to learn to play from the pocket. And if I was a quarterback coach, or if I was their head coach, the number one thing I would do with all these young quarterbacks and rookies is make them play from under center. I would build my offense young in their career from under center. And I would make them learn their timing, rhythm, footwork, everything from under center. And I would not put this entire game on their shoulders. And unfortunately, so many of these offenses just strictly throw them back in shotgun because that's all they know. And it does them a disservice when their footwork, their pocket presence looks like it does for many of these young quarterbacks in the league right now.
Apparently, Bryce Young, reportedly, was surprised at the decision. Andy Dalton said he didn't see it coming. Some people described it as Bryce Young being blindsided by it. And you didn't hear Dave Canales say, well, listen, we just want to sit him down and then we'll go back to him eventually. It was, no, we're going to make this call. There's been no decision as to what we're going to do. And it's got David Tepper's fingerprints written all over it. And it's like, here we go again, man. Like 2 weeks in, and we're already seeing they're, turning the page or making some decision based on a couple of games. And it just feels like Bryce Young got drafted, and he struggled, but he got drafted into a crap spot and a crap situation, and now the book is out on him. And the way he laid it out yesterday and talking about Sam Darnold and why Kevin O'Connell is so emotional about it and why he sees Sam Darnold struggles and then finally getting an opportunity in Minnesota with real talent and real belief around him. I just wonder if Bryce Young's career is ever going to get that sort of treatment, or if he's just where he's at and this is the way the Panthers are going to roll with it, and he's just got to deal with the repercussions.
He might get a reset at some point. They might deal him. They might deal him from there and just all the way move away from him, knowing that this just isn't. He's not the one to lift that ship. He's not the rising tide of Carolina. I think the book is out on that. And it's not, again, how much of it is on him as a player, I don't know. I tend to fall on the side of the player in most cases in these situations because I understand how being a top draft pick and being a draft pick that has expectations and standards on you, and how that, even not as a quarterback, I can't even imagine what it would be like being a quarterback and being a top draft pick for your team. The standard and the expectation is that you're going to be the savior of that team. You're going to be the catalyst of change. You're going to be the one that makes it fun to be a fan of the team again. There are a lot of expectations that come with that, and not a lot of reality is exercised in the sensibility of what could possibly be the outcome. And generally speaking, it's the player that's scapegoated every time. It's so simple and it's so easy to scapegoat the player, because as a fan, you're always going to be a fan of your team. You're going to choose your team over a player because players come and go. So to me, when you have these situations play out, which play out more often than not, people probably aren't even aware of how many times these types of situations play out versus the other way around, where the guy becomes a mainstay and a star and somebody who is a tremendous part of that community. It doesn't work out that way very often. Not for the crappy franchises. It just doesn't. And it sucks because you're going, like, Andy Dalton is not going to change this team. He's not. At this point, he's a journeyman. He's a stopgap to whatever's next. And to be honest with you, if they believe that he's going to save the season or save these coaches' jobs or whatever it may be, you're going to be looking for new coaches soon. I mean, that's the reality of this. He's not going to change it. I don't care how bad Bryce Young has been. Andy Dalton is not going to change around what the Carolina Panthers are doing. Talent does not outperform dysfunction, does it?
And we've seen enough examples of coaches being fired, Matt Rule, Frank Reich, like trading DJ Moore, getting rid of Christian McCaffrey, Brian Burns. Like, they've had like good players there that they've just moved off of. They've had coaches there that they've moved off of. And now it appears like they're going to move off of Bryce Young. And all that being said, when I see the situation, I go, oh yeah, and they were one of the handful of teams that was in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. And reportedly, the reason why they didn't land Deshaun Watson is because they didn't want to go fully guaranteed on the final 2 years of the deal. So even they could figure it out in that situation, but everything else has been a disaster. It's a mess. The guy's throwing battery acid at fans at a Jaguars game.
Seems a little off.
I mean,
there.
look, we don't know what the contents were inside the cup, but we'll just go with that for now.
I'm pretty sure it's water. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, listen, water, battery acid, same thing. The team stinks. The organization's a disaster. And I just don't know why anybody, if you've got a choice, would want to sign up for that. Like, I wonder if they called Bill Belichick after the season and said, what do you think? Does he even answer the call? Like, does he even say, no, listen, we're good here? Or if they even kick the tires on that this offseason. Like, it feels like anybody there, you know what you're signing up for, team's a mess. And it doesn't feel like it's getting any better anytime soon. Yeah. Sucks.
Battery acid, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
Yep.